And good morning, this is Mike Lodge. I'm so glad you've joined me. I pushed the start button and I didn't see it starting, but it did, so we're together and we're talking. I saw this morning a really good article which I'm going to share with you, and it's down below, the link's down below. But it was about grandparenting and the boundaries that you have to set. Now, I bring this subject up is because at least on a monthly basis, I get a call or an email or a text from a grandparent saying their children will no longer allow them to come over and be with their grandchildren. They cut them off completely. I usually get these calls when it gets to the really bad point in the relationship. The parent feels that the grandparent has overindulged themselves or have said certain things. It's usually words that set off this debacle, but it happens. And so they call me and say, can you please mediate between me and my child, my son or daughter, so that I can see my grandchildren? And sometimes these things go on for so long that the whole relationship between parent and child get completely cut off, and then there's no relationship that can be built with the grandchild or grandchildren. This article down below will set some boundaries. And let me tell you, we all need boundaries in relationships. And when it comes to grandchildren and new grandchildren and grandchildren growing up, there's got to be boundaries to keep the relationship safe, sound, good. So read the article down below because it really does make a lot of sense, and I endorse it a lot. I tell you, it's a sad moment when a grandparent comes to me and says, Mike, I really need your help, and then I can hear the tears, I can hear the crying, and I know that there is a problem, and it's gone on long enough. Remember what I have said. When you have a conflict, when you have a dispute, manage it very soon, very quickly. Once it starts, and you feel that it's gotten out of hand, call in a mediator so that you can sit down together with the other side and talk out issues. If you don't have that open communication, you are going to make this conflict grow into a huge dispute, and disputes are really hard to manage and to control when it gets out of control. And we see it, well, at least I see it happening time and time again as I get these calls and communications in from grandparents who want to have a relationship with their children, with the grandchildren, but their children are cutting them off. This should never happen. You know that, and I know that. So we have to play the game of boundaries. And we have to make sure that we know what our role is as a grandparent and how we communicate with these grandchildren and with their moms and dads, who used to be our children, who are now acting like strangers. And we see it, and I see it a lot. And I have to listen to these stories being told to me by grandparents that is really heart-wrenching. So read the article below, look at your grandparent boundaries, and live within them. You will have a much better relationship with your child and with your grandchild. I tell you, grandchildren are very precious. And I have a lot of godchildren, and I like the relationship that I have with them. But when you become a grandparent, things change because sometimes your children think that you're trying to take over, you're trying to take control, as if they don't know how to be a parent. And that's sometimes the message that gets going. Or sometimes there's a bit of jealousy. And that's a sad situation. I had one parent who was trying to have a relationship with their two granddaughters. And the mother was extremely jealous. I mean, not the grandmother, but the mother of the two children, was extremely jealous. The grandfather, who was a step-grandfather, was doing quite well of getting gigs as an actor and going out and doing public appearances and stuff like that. His side gig. She was jealous because the daughter was jealous because she wanted to be an actress. So she was so jealous that she didn't like the relationship and the close relationship that the grandfather and grandmother had with these two granddaughters. So she cut them off because of jealousy. That jealousy was so strong that no matter what I did to try to talk with that daughter, she would not respond back. She wouldn't respond back to anybody. And it got worse and more out of control. We see these things happen, and grandparents need help. One, talking about boundaries and communication, teaching grandparents to be better grandparents by not being so well, what do I want to say? Well, I want to say for grandparents not to be overbearing as a former parent. They're still parents, but they're not full-time, so they're former parents, to me. So we have these problems. Set your boundaries. Know what is expected of you to be a good grandparent. And know that your children have the responsibility of raising these children. And the only time you should ever butt in is if they ask. Unless it's a dangerous situation. Know your boundaries. Okay, grandparents, go out and have a... Oh, I heard a joke today, since we're talking about grandparents. And I posted it in my blogs out there. And I said, I know that I'm getting old when you walk past a cemetery and two guys with a shovel is following you. That's when you know you're old. Know your boundaries. Talk with you soon. Bye-bye.